Hi everyone, GWFawkes here. This is the Model Gaming Show live, coming to you on February 15th, 2018. I want to dig right into today's show. There's a lot to talk about, a lot on my mind recently, and I kind of want to get some of the less serious stuff out of the way and talk about some hard-hitting stuff that happened this week. So, just to start off, new releases this week. We got Kingdom Come: Deliverance. Currently sits at an 72 on OpenCritic. It had like a 20 gigabyte first day patch, and apparently there's still a ton of bugs and whatnot. This game will get better over time. It's just, you know, it's gonna be it's with early access. It kind of feels like an early access game, right? Where it's just super buggy, but it'll get better over time. Dynasty Warriors 9 currently sits at a 64. Not great. From what I've seen and what I've watched, a couple people play and what I've read, it's just a big, open, stretched out world that's pretty janky. It looks like a PS3 game, barely. And it just looks so boring. It looks so dang boring. Like, it looks like a big step back from what people I trust have been saying and playing. So, and then actually releasing tomorrow, EA's Fe, just Fe. It's like this cute little fox game that kind of reminded me of Ori and the Blind Forest a little bit. Looked very whimsical and good. It's got a 76 right now on OpenCritic. Basically, most of the reviews 8, 7, some 6.5s, you know, some 5s and stuff like that. But they just basically say it's decent. It's like a good, solid game with excellent music and excellent visuals. And that, you know, it's a puzzle platformer and it's good. And that, you know, it's solid. It's $20, so it's hard to judge, you know, value, right? 6-hour game, $20. I mean, shit, I pay $16 for a movie ticket, so for 20 to get 5-6 hours, that's good for me, right? California lifestyle right there, Los Angeles lifestyle. Small story first, just that I thought was amusing, and what developers are doing now. It's just really odd. So Valve looked into this. There's a developer called Incel Games on Valve that has released a few games, and basically some emails were leaked, and it was Valve or Incel's owners basically telling their employees, we can't force you to write a review, but basically you should write a positive review, like sign on, create accounts on Steam and write positive reviews of the game so that they sell copies. That's a big no-no. You can't do that. Come on, guys. That's just, if you're making that kind of game and you need that publicity, then you're not doing a good enough job, I'm guessing. Obviously, there's thousands of games on Steam, but you got to differentiate yourself enough to not have to have your own people who are making it write reviews. That's low. So Valve said you guys are gone, and now they're no longer selling them on Steam. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do. Normally, this next topic I would make the full discussion of a show, but I feel with what I want to talk about at the head, this can be still a lengthy discussion, and I want to get into it. So basically, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, they've all released plans. Ubisoft more specifically this week released like a big spreadsheet. It was really funny. Basically, it was just like a table. We'll just call it a table where on this side it's how we did games up until now and how we're doing games in the future. And it's just different things, right? And so the main thing was like you finish the game and that's it, compared to games are, continuous, right? Get the player coming back more. So it's games as a service, okay? It's how can we create a game where not necessarily have it be a multiplayer online, but how can we get people coming back? Whether it's Monster Hunter is a good example of doing this for free, okay? Where they're updating the game, I think every week with a couple new monsters. That's awesome. That's the right way to do it. That's the fair and correct way to do it. Ubisoft and EA, and to a certain extent Microsoft, they go about it as, no, how can we do microtransactions and loot boxes, and how can we take that route and, and get gamers to stay. And so it's basically, how can we create games as an online service? I've talked about this before when I talked about Anthem, one of my most anticipated games, and just the EA stuff with loot box controversies and all that. Games as service is an interesting idea. Microsoft recently did this, right? So Microsoft has Xbox Games Pass, right? And I talked about this a bit before, where now their games are day and date release, new games, first party Microsoft, on Microsoft Games Pass. And they figured, great, I can get people to buy 2 Microsoft games per year. That's $10 a month, $120. Like, most people, I don't think, buy that. And if we do, we can get them for $120 a year. Great. That's kind of the idea now, and that's where most of these big publishers, granted, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, they're some of the biggest, the biggest publishers in the game. That's the model now. The perfect model, and one that really never gets shit for it, is Grand Theft Auto. There was a really funny graphic that was out where up until 2013, Take-Two, I think, was the producer, but Rockstar, released a different game every year up until 2013. And then 2013, it's hard stop, okay, with Grand Theft Auto 5. They have not produced a new game since then because of Grand Theft Auto Online. That is incredible. I just read that they did, oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. I think they did $90 million in profit. I think that's what it was from Grand Theft Auto Online. Since its inception, or this year, something crazy like that. Just released a statistic this week, actually, that Ubisoft or EA, I'm sorry I'm messing up the statistics, but Ubisoft or EA, one of the big guys, released a thing saying, they made $4 billion in microtransactions or something like that since they've been doing it. Since like the online generation or something like that, since they started doing microtransactions, $4 billion in just microtransactions. But I want to get back to Grand Theft Auto. $90 million, just say, is the number. And just from Grand Theft Auto Online. That's incredible. And that's what happens when you've got a sustainable user base. You're releasing new content that's free, but there's always stuff to buy. too. Outfits, cars, it's all shark cards basically that you buy in-game currency to buy stuff in the game. Some of my favorite comedy channels on YouTube, just namely who do it the most, Funhouse. They have a couple of Grand Theft Auto focused series that are fun, and they are always joking about buying shark cards. You know what I mean? Hey, spending another $100 on shark cards. Now that is for something they are producing, but that's probably not far from the average consumer, where it's like, hey, I'll drop another $20 in here and play it for another month. That's pretty dang good, and it's obviously proving that it works. But the problem that these other developers are encountering is that Rockstar, one, has an excellent product, and their pedigree is basically the best in the business. I would consider Rockstar as the best developer in video games in terms of quality and clarity of what they're doing and content. They basically rock everyone. God, pun not intended. They are above everyone, and that's why Red Dead Redemption 2 is taking so long, right? So from 2013 to now, we're in 2018. It's been 5 years almost since they've released their last game. Red Dead comes out this year, and just as well, they're not going to have Grand Theft Auto Online. I think was 3 weeks after Grand Theft Auto launch, or several weeks. They released Grand Theft Auto Online because they wanted to give people a chance to get into the world and do all that, and to get the online mode ready to handle the amount of people. Red Dead Redemption is going to be the same thing, guys, okay? And I know people are thinking, oh, there's just horses, there's not as much. People are going to mod the crap out of this on PC. Rockstar is going to throw everything in the kitchen sink, okay, at this online. It doesn't matter that it's in the West. It doesn't have to be realistic when it's online, right? The single player game is a thing of itself. That's why Rockstar's so great, is they create a persistent world and then have that world be an online mode. That's ingenious, okay? That's fantastic. That means that they get to basically have their cake and eat it too, right? They release their game for $60, okay? And you get this beautiful 40-hour experience, or however many hour main story. If you just dash through it, 15 to 25 hours, do all the side quests, you're looking at 40 hours. Hell, I played the original Red Dead single player probably for 50 hours and 100 more online, at least, with friends. Although, again, one of my favorite games. So that's going to be the same thing. It's how can we give this game as a service and just continue to update it while treating the customer and not feeling like we're cheating them with the content, right? You're paying a certain amount every month to have Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus and have this online services and play these games. So they want to provide content that's smart, cosmetic, and whatnot, and otherwise, for you to keep playing. And it's really a smart way that people are thinking about it, but it just needs to be done right. And I think Ubisoft and EA lose that, is they're just going for greed. They're just going for, how can we make money? We don't give a shit about the consumer. For the most part, I think that's kind of how they're playing it, because they're these huge corporations. Activision is in there too, but they've kind of always been doing that with Call of Duty. It's like, when you release a Call of Duty game every year, I know this might seem like a weird analogy, but the games as service is every year you re-up for $60 and you play the multiplayer online. That's how they're doing it, especially if you're a Call of Duty guy. Every year, new game comes out. Same thing with Madden and FIFA. Obviously, it's different, but every year there's a new version of the same game that you've been playing. Hell, I remember playing NBA 2K on the Dreamcast, okay? That was my first sports game that I loved. And I bought those. Through Xbox, I played sports games until 2010 or something, 2008. So I played 8 years of sports games every year buying that. 60 times 8, that's $480, not including tax here in California. Another $40, that's $700 I've just spent on one game series every year re-upping. So it's interesting when you compare it to that and go in that way. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think if done well and done right, it can be great. And you can play a game for hundreds and hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours like that, because the content is just so broad and fantastic. So want to go into something a little bit more serious now, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, and I want to start off with one topic first that's kind of like the segue into this. And I think it was last week or a few days ago, two popular online YouTubers who live together, Megan Turney and Gavin. Okay, they became popular on Rooster Teeth. They've got their own shows going. They're very popular. They do good work. That's it. They're entertaining. They're fun. They had an intruder drive from a different state and break into their home with full intention of killing them. He was mentally ill and was able to obtain a handgun. They were lucky. They heard the break-in. They locked themselves in their room, in their closet. He was unable to find them and they immediately called the cops. Standoff happened, and the pursuer, the suspect, was killed on the site. And it brought up a lot of questions of how much you give yourself, how much information, how did this guy find them? And then on the other side of it is an issue of mental health and an issue of ease of access of weapons, right? I usually am the least political person you ever talk to. I frankly don't like discussing it, but that, and then now the mass shooting in Florida has got me thinking more about it, and not necessarily becoming more political, but I feel it necessary to talk about it. And I listened to the President Trump's address today, and while I thought it was good, and I thought it was actually well done, I'm not trying to pick a side of gun control or mental health or whatever. I'm not trying to pick a side and make a stance, because I don't think it's necessarily just one of those things. I think it's a human problem. I want to read to you a little story here, okay? Ever since the Sandy Hook shooting in 2014, The Onion has their satire news article. The Onion has released an article. Who, incidentally, the author of this article, when he released it, this school, he lives a mile from the school that this just happened in Florida. But basically what they've been doing as even greater satire is every time there's a shooting at a school or otherwise, they repost the same article with the same headline, and they just update the facts. And I just became aware of this article today, and it saddened me completely, and that's why I felt compelled to talk about this. The headline basically says, "No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens." And I can't count, and this is what's sad, is it has become a regular thing in the United States to turn on the news or to go on the internet and see a story about a mass shooting, and most of them, the majority of them, are happening at schools, and it's mentally ill individuals using guns to kill children. And so when I say it's not a gun problem, it's not a mental health problem, it's a human problem, I mean that. It's both. It's all of it. That's the saddest thing I can think of, is children dying, right? Young kids being killed by other young kids. And you can say it's the access to weapons that is the cause, or you can say it's the mental health that we have. But I say it's both. It's both, and it's extremely terrible and extremely sad. And what happened with Megan and Gavin, they were extremely fortunate and extremely lucky and acted quickly. And thank God they did. But it's extremely frightening to live in a society where this is happening frequently enough to where people are satirizing a phrase the phrase thoughts and prayers has no fucking meaning anymore, okay? It's pointless, and it's pointless just like the violence. If you're a mentally ill individual or whoever's doing this and targeting a school full of kids, now this guy went to this school, right? He was, but for all intents and purposes, if you look at it and you look at what he was posting online and you look at everything that he's saying, how is this not a giant red flag? On top of that, the worst part, at least for me, is he used an AR-15, right? That's a semi-automatic weapon. He had mental health issues, right? They were known. So you pair those both together, how does that make any sense? How is that possible? How is it possible for a 19-year-old with with all that he's been saying and putting online, how does that make sense for him to get an AR-15? Which in most states, that gun's illegal. It's illegal in California, as far as I'm aware. And that's the culture and the attitude now with the United States, is we become desensitized. And it's sad. It's really sad because this happens so damn often. I don't know how many times it's happened since Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook was the big wake-up call, and it's been at least a dozen at minimum. I mean, hell, earlier this year, this just happened like a week or two ago too. Some dude with a gun on campus ended up shooting 2 people, and they didn't die, and police killed him. You know what I mean? It's the overall culture that we've created and the desensitized feel that we have, where it's another mass shooting. Why is this becoming a regular thing? And it's just a human issue. There needs to be education. It starts at that. Again, I just wanted to say my piece on this. I know this is a gaming show, and I try and be light and I try and be upbeat, but this is a larger issue. It's bigger than anything with video games, and it's more important. I hope none of you who watch this have been affected by it. That's my only hope, and I guess I only hope that we learn something this time, that something happens that's positive. On that note, thank you for watching. I hope you think about what happened too. Even if you're in another country or you're not close to it, I'm on the other side of the country. Even if you're elsewhere, 17 people are dead. I think more than a dozen are in critical condition in the hospital, and it's trying times to kind of be in this world, right? So thank you for watching. Again, I'm GWFawkes. This is Model Gaming, and hope next week we have something lighter to talk about. Have a good night.